Hello, everybody. The Premier League starts here. At least that's what we're saying. Norwich City, of course, kick off their Premier League campaign tomorrow evening, 5:30 at a full Carrow Road, which is going to be lovely against Liverpool. So just a little test to ease them into the top flight. And, of course, we'll be previewing that clash as well as talking, as we do on Window Watch, all about the latest transfer speculation news, answering your questions as well. So make sure you get them in and we'll try and get through as many as possible. This is a late kickoff for us, so hopefully we've not thrown you completely, and we still get a good amount of comments in. We'll have Jurgen Klopp's thoughts on Norwich City's transfer window today as well, and we'll be talking, of course, about the new additions so far this week, Josh Sargent and Christos Tzolis, which I think is what we're going with, Pad. Although we'll wait for the man himself to confirm. Because I think there's got three different variations.
No. I asked you this earlier today, and you said you sent me a link, and it was Tzolis. Basically, you dropped the T. Now you've just thrown a J in there, unless I didn't quite hear you.
On the club's pronunciation sheet, which they sent to us in the in like the media packs, it says Tzolis. It's an SCH, isn't it? That they go with. So
that's true.
Like, sure, that sort of noise rather than sort of a Jollis, which I had been going with.
We're all like, well, I'm still struggling with Max Aaron's errands, so this could be a long old season. But no, I was slightly distracted. I'm going to tease this. There's a bit of transfer news in inverted commas going to be pushed out by the club in about 10 minutes. Don't get overexcited. It's not an inward bound, it's an outward bound. And even then, don't get excited. But so keep watching is all I'm going to say. But I was kind of half listening, and then I got a ping from the people who know. The people who matter. So, keep watching. But you're not going to be jumping out and out because this is compelling viewing for the next hour, isn't it, Connor?
It is. Yeah, absolutely is. So there you go. A bit of breaking news for you. We should have something to react to at some point in the next 10 minutes or so. Pad, let's start with tomorrow then. First and foremost, let's touch upon fans being back. I've seen a club release saying that everyone in the ground, certainly the Norwich persuasion at least, is going to be given a flag. I'm kind of trying to fast forward to about this time tomorrow, maybe just 10 minutes to the other side, about 5:25 when the teams come out. That's going to be some noise, isn't it, that comes out of Carrow Road?
Well, I mean, we were obviously, at the Gillingham game, and that sounded quite loud, certainly more than the 10,500, I think, was the official attendance when, like, Tim Krul came out to warm up, when Ben Gibson, I think, was at the head of the line when they came out before the game. And then moving it on, Newcastle, we were there last week, and obviously we won't dwell too much on the result, but there was 20,000 in that day, and when the Newcastle players came out before the kickoff, that was loud. That felt very loud. So I can only begin to, as you say, just under 24 hours from now, we'll get into it. Daniel's appealing for the old Yellow Army to be in full voice, respecting obviously the protocols and the processes that are in place, but as he said, that's not going to stop them, hopefully, making plenty of noise. And by Jove, they're going to need it to sort of any way, shape or form level the playing field tomorrow. It will. Just setting aside whatever the result is, even whatever the performance from Norwich, just that sense of occasion. And for everybody who's present there, I don't think they'll forget that in a hurry, that the moment they were back at Carrow Road, looks like it's going to be a full house, maybe bar one or two seats, and against the backdrop of everything that everybody in this world has had to live through. So for the last 18 months or so, pretty quite emotional as well. I've seen a few tweets, sadly, there's people no longer with us. Norwich fans, Norwich season ticket holders. There was I won't name names, but there's a row of seats directly in front of the press box, and I was speaking to one of the guys I've not seen since before the pandemic. He was at the Gillingham game, and he said the guy he sat next to sadly has passed away, no longer with us. So, it's going to be highly emotional for so many reasons. And let's just hope it's another step down the road to whatever the new normal looks like in this post-pandemic world. But I can imagine it will be, certainly that first rendition of On the Ball will be spine-tingling, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I think Craig sums it up quite well on Facebook. He says it'll be a special day. Can't wait to hear 27,000 fans singing On the Ball City again. To be honest, it'll just be nice to hear groans once a pass is misplaced or something, because that's something we've not had for a long time. Hopefully from a Liverpool perspective rather than a Norwich one, of course. Let's get into the transfer news. Let's start with the two that have come in this week then, Pad. Josh Sargent, let's start with him. Striker from Werder Bremen, fee of around 8 million, maybe with the potential to go slightly higher. What do you make of that acquisition from a Norwich City perspective? Because it all seemed to move fairly quickly.
Well, it did and it didn't, Connor. As we know, there was links to that guy. I can't remember exactly when, but certainly earlier in the summer. And at that point, we were, I think, €10 million was the figure that was linked to Norwich. And the sort of message from Norwich certainly was that wasn't going to be a goer. That almost Werder were digging their heels in, and whether they saw him A, as part of their fight back because he obviously got relegated last season, or B, a little bit like Ayer and Celtic, maybe they felt they could get a bit of an auction going, and maybe some not bigger clubs, but certainly bigger fees could be commanded for that man. You fast forward it, reading between lines, I would look at it and think, well, maybe they didn't get the interest they were thinking. Norwich retained their interest, continued the dialogue. The channels were already there from the Milo Rashica, deal, which went through at the start of the summer, a little bit like obviously Tzolis and Unulis with Pauk, and maybe it's got to the point. Werder have started their season. I saw some quotes around the whole Sargent thing that they needed to move a player or two on to generate funds to be able to do what they want to do. I don't think they're in the best financial shape at the minute, having gone down out of the Bundesliga. And all the planets aligned. And I think at that point, it actually moved fairly swiftly because I'm sure that they wouldn't have pursued again and again and again Norwich if they hadn't have got the sense maybe from people around the player that he would be receptive to moving to England and moving to Norwich. So I think really the sticking point probably was Werder ultimately, that maybe earlier in the summer they wasn't overly keen to let him go for the amount of money that he has eventually gone for. So huge amount of talk subsequently about it. It seems a lot of money for a player with maybe not the most prolific goal scoring record, but I think most fans will be more than willing to give him a chance because there's some very astute judges in the game, none more so than Jurgen Klopp today at his presser, who referenced Sargent as a very, very good young attacking player. And that would be good enough for me, definitely, if his opinion is of that ilk. And we know that Daniel rates him, Stuart rates him. So, there's a lot of potential. And we'll probably say that about Tzolis and maybe even Rashica, albeit to a slightly lesser degree because he's a bit more experienced and he's got more games under his belt. But pretty much stamped through the more recent acquisitions is that word potential. He's not the finished article. And if he was, Daniel said it today, if you were going to get a finished article who's a proven Premier League goal scorer, he's not coming for £8 million. It's just not. It's not the way of the world now. Southampton having to go double that pretty much to bring in Adam Armstrong. He's not a proven Premier League goal scorer. That is the price tag that comes with trying to bring in players good enough to score goals. But it could turn into that, and ultimately that's the risk element of that piece of business. But certainly one, they didn't get discouraged early in the summer. They kept plugging away. The environment maybe shifted around it from the Werder end, and ultimately, Norwich have done the deal, and we'll see what he's all about. He does seem to have a bit of versatility to him. He's not an out and out front man who's going to only be able to do that. And as a result, because we all know if Timu is fit and firing, Timu starts certainly in the early part of the season. So his route into the side may be more in a wider area, and that'll be interesting. And by all accounts, well, Daniel confirmed it. Both him and Tzolis and Rashica are all available tomorrow. So I think you would assume they'll all probably be in the 18, and then it's just where we go from there. But I think for me, probably the jury has to be out because he's coming with a tag of potential rather than the finished product, and let's give him a chance.
Yeah, it's going to be really interesting to see how Daniel plays that, and we might get into that a little bit later in terms of what the team might look like. You sort of stumbled upon something there in terms of Norwich having to be patient. It seems like that's the case certainly for Tzolis as well as Sargent. Two players there that they've kind of had to, as you've outlined there, really be patient to get 13 days into August, rather, a few weeks before the window ends. Not ideal timing to bring in a new signing, given that you'd want them at the start of pre-season. I think Stuart Webber's made sort of little secret about that, but it shows the importance of being patient and being persistent with targets, which is kind of a new approach from Norwich City compared to 2 years ago when they were last in the Premier League.
Spot on, yeah. Sorry, I've just seen the comments coming through. I was inaccurate. It is 20, isn't it, now in the Premier League, and 9 subs rather than, I think I said 18.
Yeah.
So if it's 20.
I was going to call you out on that, but I thought someone else would in the comment. I was going to call you out on that, but someone in the comments would have, so I left them to it.
Fine. Well, I knew you would be calling me out, so I thought I'd get in there first. But I mean, if it's 20, then just final point on the previous point. Yeah, there's no doubt if those 3 are eligible, Daniel said they were, then they will be in the 20. Tzolis, he's we were told this week that is something they've been trying to put together for over 2 months, 10 weeks. They've been trying to do that deal and try and get him in the building at the start of pre-season. And again, I don't think it was the player holding that move up. I think it was very much Pauk digging their heels in, and there was lots of talk, even in the last sort of week or so, that there was sticking points over sizes of sell-on fees, or wanting him to maybe play in their second Conference League qualifier was against Bohemians, which was yesterday. And I don't quite know the veracity of those elements, but certainly in terms of the pursuit, this was one. Well, they've been tracking him for over a year in terms of the scouting side and distilling him down into we want to try and press the button on this guy. But that actual phase of this has turned into a saga, because he would have been, if all the cards had fell correctly and in time, certainly on Norwich's timeline, he would have been in the building probably. I'm trying to think who came in 10 weeks back, certainly before Lee Malou, probably even before Billy Gilmore. He would have been one of the earliest pieces of business. And again, talking about it in terms of Sargent potential, he's probably even more so potential because he's a little bit younger than Sargent, and it's really off the back of one, albeit standout looking campaign in Greece. I can't remember the numbers off the top of my head. It's something like, is it 10 goals, 16 assists, or vice versa last season? Yeah. Well, that's Emi Buendia territory, isn't it? And I know we don't want to label him as the new Buendia, but in terms of your impact on your football team, that goes without saying. And really, Daniel's quotes, I mean, for a man who doesn't really want to put too much pressure on younger players and is quite keen to sort of almost play down the hype, I don't think you should be labelling him as one of the best attacking players in Europe for his age.
Well, I was going to say, if that's Daniel Farke playing him down, then Norwich will have got a very, very good player if that's the case.
Well, if he's underplaying that, then but so that tells you what Daniel thinks on this guy. And as I say, 19 years old, to part with the thick end of £9 million, not quite a club record deal, could go on to be. This guy, well, let's hope he is, but he could be very special, and that could look quite cheap if even this season, if he hits the ground running, weighs in with goals and assists, hopefully in a cause that keeps Norwich in the division. But irrespective of Norwich's status, if he delivers those individual numbers this time next summer, then who knows? But that looks like it's a little bit surprising that, given his reputation, that maybe there wasn't more interest. We don't know how many other suitors Pauk had, but as I say, Norwich were, from about 11 weeks ago, trying to get this deal done. So maybe because they felt that, there probably would be other clubs come out of the woodwork. So credit to Stuart Webber. Daniel said today he's done an absolutely superb job to this point in the window. Not done yet, but certainly him, Rashica, Sargent, all 3 of those are very, very intriguing deals. And I personally can't wait to see how they get on in the Premier League.
Yes, it's going to be fascinating. We've got a clip of Jurgen Klopp. There we go. Clip of Jurgen Klopp coming up later, and him describing Norwich City's transfer business, which is, as you kind of alluded to earlier, Paddy, very complimentary indeed. You mentioned that they've been watching Tzolis for over a year now, which they have. I don't know. Hopefully, Tony can find the picture of that I'm talking about. But Stuart Webber, he's a name that's known to Stuart Webber, isn't he? Seemingly back to the academy recruitment days at Liverpool, and Tzolis actually went on a trial with Liverpool, I think when he was 13, I want to say, which someone sent in a picture of him in a Liverpool kind of tracksuit, which I think we put on Twitter. So Tony will find that and flash that up when we have it. But it just goes to show, again, we'll use that word, perseverance, patience, the importance of doing that in the transfer window in order to land targets that are top targets rather than working down the list and maybe ending up with a Patrick Roberts, for example, not to be disrespectful, but in terms of working your way down the list fairly quickly.
Yeah, I'll never forget. I thought Patrick Roberts, when I saw, which again is a very cautionary tale, I thought when we saw him in that pre-season, that looked a good piece of business. There we go. Which one is he then?
Just front, second to the right in the middle, I think.
Yeah.
Him on trial at Liverpool, and Powick put out a nice video today, which is 33 minutes long, documenting his journey from joining as an 8-year-old to leaving as a 19-year-old. And in that, there's a statistic that, I'm pretty sure he said under 13, he scored 100 goals in 49 games in one season. That's incredible, isn't it? They're scary numbers. So let's hope we see that in a Norwich shirt. But in terms of them, if we move this on before we kind of get to some comments and look ahead in the transfer window, in terms of those two and tomorrow, I know you said they'll be in the 20. Do you see either of them starting? Do you think Daniel Farke will make that call? Sargent, to me, looks maybe the more likely to go from the off.
Oh, well, I think now he's more or less confirmed Cantwell is fit, because that was a major concern after missing Newcastle. And then when he said that they were a little bit concerned for this game. But today, he said he's trained the last couple of days, subject to no sort of overnight reaction. Then I think Cantwell's in that. Well, we can get into debating, what the formation is. But if it's let's just say, for hypothetical sake, it's the 3 behind the GOAT, then Cantwell's one of those for me. I think Dowell's one of those. And then I'd probably put Rashica in. Again, he's not really had the game time he needs, but what he has been is in the building a lot longer, and that kind of understanding with his teammates, and which those two guys simply haven't got because they've only been in the building a matter of hours, really. So I think that would be a big call. I'm not saying he wouldn't do that, but then when you sort of overlay it with he's going to have to make some big calls, maybe in terms of playing Pukki after his pre-season, Grant Hanley at the back as well. How many of those do you need to, imponderables do you need to put into your starting 11, I think, and to drop a Sargent in, for example, or Tzolis from the start, given you're probably going to have to play Hanley and Pukki as well. I just don't quite see it, but certainly as the game develops, could I see him getting onto the pitch? Yeah, no two ways about it. But no, I think Cantwell's the key to that. If Cantwell hadn't been fit for tomorrow, then potentially, because you're looking at it, and with Poeta isn't available, still not COVID positive, but still displaying symptoms, so he's out of the mix. Onel would come into the equation, I guess, but not really done too much over pre-season. So no, if you think he might play and I don't, then one of us is going to be right come 2 o'clock. Come 4:30 tomorrow. But I just think for me, with all the other things that he needs to weigh up in terms of his team selection tomorrow, I think that would be quite a big call to play a Sargent or a Tzolis from the start.
Interesting. I've got a funny feeling Sargent might play. Just a funny. There is some logic behind it in terms of he's already started.
Go on and explain it.
He's already started his league season, hasn't he? He's played twice. He scored twice. He probably comes in terms of fitness wise in a very good condition. As you said, there's versatility there to maybe if Daniel Farke did go something like a 3-5-2, which I could see. I could maybe see them playing together. So I don't think I would discount it, particularly given his work rate and as we mentioned, kind of the ability to play several positions. You could then kind of drop him into that, not 10 role necessarily, but have him a little bit deeper than Teemu Pukki and play it like that. But yeah, look, it wouldn't surprise me either way. It wouldn't surprise me if Sargent was in the starting line. It wouldn't surprise me if they were both on the bench. I don't see Tzolis starting, to be completely honest. Let's get
Connor, do you want that breaking news?
Go on then, Pad. Hold on to your hats, everyone.
Yeah, certainly don't take your hats off or hold on to them. No, just keep them on. But Matthew Dennis, the academy winger they got from Arsenal, he's completed a season-long loan to Southend, who I think are in Kings Lynn's League. If I'm not mistaken, they're playing him in the first game, aren't they? Yeah. So whether the deal's gone through quick enough for him to be at the Walks, they're starting at the Walks. Oh, it's next week. It's not this weekend. It's next week. So yeah, I'd imagine he will be involved. But so yeah, there you go. So that's another one of those academy lads going out, getting some decent level football, and we'll see how he gets on. But I think he came in at the same time as Barley Mumber, if I'm not mistaken, Connor. That sounds about right, didn't it? Because there was that picture of those two prior to the official announcement where they were wandering about Norwich Market. And of course, of the two, Barley Mumber has really kicked on and got himself a new deal this summer and very firmly in Daniel's first team plans. Hasn't quite happened for Dennis. So we'll see whether Southend can, a loan spell season long, that Southend kicks him on or not.
Yeah, he's been there on trial, hasn't he, with a view to a loan. I think Phil Brown has made a little secret of his desire to keep him there. There was apparently some interest from other clubs, including Kings Lynn. So we'll watch with interest how he gets on at Southend. Yeah, it's good to see a young lad head out on loan. Let's get into some of the comments. Hello to Ashley. Hello to Craig. Hello to Ed. Let's see what else we've got. Hello to David, who has said, "Evening, fellas. Any links to a defensive midfielder?" And it doesn't quite seem, it seems quiet on that front. But as Daniel alluded to today, the focus will quickly turn to the back end of the pitch. I think, as we've said, full back cover, central defender, central midfielder. They'll be kind of the remaining holes to fill, won't they, until now and August the 30th?
Yeah, that's basically where we are now. They're taking a pause. Won't be any incoming business in the next certainly over this Liverpool spell, over the weekend, early part of next week. But that is the final push. You've mapped it out there, Connor. We knew those positions, and that's still very much the case. Centre back, centre mid, full back, left back, rather than right back. So So no, I haven't heard any. I mean, I was going to throw it open. It'd be nice to get a few names thrown at us.
Yeah, absolutely.
On those positions, given that. We had the line early in the week on Pinkham.com. Philip Billing appears to be very happy under Scott Parker on the south coast at Bournemouth. He's more or less saying he wants to stay there, so put a line through him. Ollie Skip, I think, will probably be involved for Tottenham against Man City this weekend. I saw some quotes in the last hour or so where in Ndombele, it looks to have fallen out of favour with Nuno already. Central midfield option, so that might push Ollie Skip up the pecking order. Harry Winks is there, of course, as well, but I thought it was telling he started. They played Tottenham pre-season last weekend, and Skip started the game. So you get in straight away a clear sense that Nuno wants to involve him, certainly in the early part of the season. So I think that ship has probably looked like it's sailed. And I haven't heard any real, certainly in the last sort of week, few days, of any other CDMs that would come into the equation. Certainly any links to Norwich. So I'll be interested if anybody else out there has seen it. I think it was very much, get the saga of Tzolis and get Sargent over the line this week. Start of the week, back end of the week, as Daniel said today, focus very much now is on Liverpool inside that club. Get Liverpool out of the way, and then they'll pick it up again. So nothing imminent. Not hearing of any we're down the line with anything in any of those positions. So. And we all know Brandon Williams was a player they were linked with, and they still, as it stands, with where are we, just over 2 weeks of the window left, still have that Premier League loan option, domestic loan option. So you can be damn sure they'll be using that to fill one of these three positions.
Yeah, there were some reports, weren't there, that they tried to do a similar thing that they did with the Billy Gilmore deal in terms of that loan fee perhaps decreasing with the amount of games that he plays. And since then, it all seems to have gone relatively quiet. But as you say, definitely a player that they like. Paul McInnes has said, or how about, he's going to test me now, as in school. So what, Tzolis?
Tzolis, that'd be, wouldn't it? Tzolis. Yeah. We have any Greek, either natives or speakers?
Or any of his mates watching that know the answer definitively. That'd be helpful, wouldn't it?
We need. Hold on, did they? Because we had that really, really spot on journalist who seemed to have his finger on the pulse the Greek end. Dave did a piece with him, didn't he? Earlier in the week, we had the video. I'm not even going to pronounce it.
I think you went with Tzolis.
Tzolis. That's what I thought. When you sent that link earlier today to the Greek commentary over some of his action, his highlights. It was definitely drop the T, Tzolis. So you foxed me with this Tzolis carry on, but I'm prepared to accept that it's Tzolis. But no offense, Connor, I'd rather take somebody else's word for it than your word, mate.
Yeah. I'm no language expert.
So then you're only quoting from the official guide that Norwich have put out, the media advisory.
Well, I am, and you would have presumed that they'd have asked him, surely.
You would hope so, but then
I mean, all the other ones.
You say that, but Max Aarons was Max Aarons for how many years? So there you go.
Yeah, this is
Tzolis.
true. All the other ones are right. We've got Idar in there. I'm trying to think off the top of my head. Omabama, like delay is how they're saying it. That's how it's sort of phonetically spelt on the pronunciation chart. So there's some interesting ones in there.
Lease Malou is lease as in car lease.
Yeah,
I've got that on the sheet. Yeah, lease Malou. Yeah.
So there's a few interesting ones in there. Maybe we'll have to screenshot that and put it somewhere so we've all got a reference guide. But yeah, I'm going with Tzolis until told otherwise. So there we go. Rob Nizzet, there's a few questions about him from Global Bloodstock. Charlie Summers as well has said about Rob Nizzet. Jim as well. Cheerio, Rob Nizzet. He has featured a few times in pre-season. There was an announcement today, wasn't there? From the club, which is this is French, isn't it?
No, is it Lecce? Yeah, Lecce.
Yeah, Italian. Italian. That's right. Yeah, my country's confused now. That seemingly an announcement that he's joined them on a permanent basis. That's an interesting one, isn't he? For a young player that many viewed as having a lot of talent and potential.
Yeah. My phone just pinged there. I was thinking that might be Rob Nizzet getting confirmed to Lecce, but it wasn't. It was my wife, so that's a different story. Was it Dave, our colleague, had spoken to a few people, or was it yourself, Connor, that he was maybe a little bit immature? They felt in terms of the ability maybe was there, and he always I thought quite composed on the ball, and looked like there was a bit of raw material to work with, but. It's a very, competitive development pool that those players are swimming in now. And if there are questions about his maturity and composure, then you contrast him with a Bali Mumba. I keep using him as the perfect example. There's a guy who clearly has the right mentality and the right temperament, and maybe that maturity that possibly this guy didn't have. So they will have clearly decided that there's elements of his footballing makeup that aren't maybe for them. Hence why, they've obviously decided maybe did you say it's a permanent he's going to go on or
certainly the announcement suggests it was permanent. We obviously had the story earlier this summer, didn't we, that he went to Belgium to explore a potentially permanent move, which didn't come to fruition. So it does seem like he's one that they have opened the door on in terms of allowing to go elsewhere.
I mean, they do have. It just popped into my head as well. They have a very highly rated. I think he's a left back. I know he's a left back who's a little bit younger than him in the academy. We've talked about him before. Shipley, is it the boy Shipley? Who's originally from West Norfolk. And again, it's that kind of, creating holes in the academy to let ones they feel have maybe better potential sort of, burst through and play out of age group and because it's all about pushing them through as quick as they can to the first team. So that might be factored in as well. Steve Weaver and the people around him might be also thinking, well, decent player, but we have a question mark or two, and we maybe feel there's better than him younger down in the academy. And of course, if we're talking left backs, they want to do a left back. It might not. It's possible it could be a loan. It might be a permanent. And if you've got that person, you've got Bali Mumba can operate there, and you've got Yanulis. Maybe in the next sort of 12, 18 months, they're looking at it and thinking there isn't going to be an opportunity there. So, yeah, it's all about ultimately trying to cultivate players to, A, get them towards your first team, or B, maybe move them on and they go have careers elsewhere. So, yeah, worth watching him go from here with interest, I think.
Yeah, and Sam Byram, who of course is still in trouble, albeit hopefully on the road to recovery. This is an interesting one from John Wilson, who says, as far as potential loans are concerned, would like someone like Philip Sandler at Manchester City, or would someone like Philip Sandler at Manchester City be viable? And I think this is a name that I kind of threw somewhere when it was mentioned that potentially the centre-back route could be a loan one. He's 23, 24, I think. Played some football, but not loads. Daniel Farke and Pep Guardiola's relationship is obviously very good. We know that Pep likes to watch Norwich in his spare time. So, I mean, it's not beyond the realms, but that sort of profile, when we're talking about centre-back in particular and the loan route, do you think it would be someone in terms of 22 to 24 rather than 18, 19, that sort of age bracket?
Well, yeah, for the simple reason, centre-back wise, the bracket of age you're talking about, the box is ticked by Omabama Daily, isn't it, ultimately? So again, we're talking just back to Rob Nizzet about the, creating opportunities for other players to come through. Maybe who you feel, what would it say in terms of Norwich's model, or more pertinently to Andrew Omabama Daly, if they went out and brought another 18, 19-year-old centre back in from another club on loan. That wouldn't. I don't think that would send the right signal, and they certainly wouldn't do that. So that individual you mentioned there, the Man City player, if he's a little bit older, I could see something like that making a lot of sense actually, and then you're kind of getting into the realms of, well, how do you sort of square off Man City presumably wanting guarantees or assurances about how many minutes he would play, but they managed to get to that point with Chelsea and Gilmour. Yes, it looks like they've been talking in similar terms to United about Brandon Williams, so I don't think that would be a hurdle or an obstacle they couldn't clear. But I think something of that nature, if you're talking centre-back and loans, then if it's not the elite clubs in the Premier League with their vast squads, it's not really going to be any of the other clubs in the Premier League, because they don't carry that volume of players, and certainly young players. So, yeah, that sort of, for me, would, if it's going to be a domestic Premier League grade loan, you're narrowing down the pool to really the top clubs. And obviously they can't get another one out of Chelsea because of the regulations. You can only have one from the same club, so that slot's been taken. So it's United, it's City, maybe even Liverpool this weekend. I mean, Daniel did tongue-in-cheek say he'd love to borrow one of Jurgen Klopp's centre-backs. I think he was thinking more Virgil van Dijk, but I don't think there's much chance of that happening. But, you look, they've got Matip, they've got Gomez, there's one or two others as well, name escaped me, but they played in those Carabao Cup games last season. That isn't beyond the realms. Maybe that after this weekend, there's maybe a Liverpool highly rated young player, but in his 20s young player coming to Carrow Road. I'd certainly keep an eye on the Liverpool link, no doubt about it.
Yeah, Nat Phillips, Ben Davis, a couple off the top of my head that come to mind. There's probably loads other, isn't there? These top clubs tend to hoard young talent.
Well, they've got the Welsh left back, haven't they? But of course now with the injury to Andy Robertson, is it Nico Williams?
Yes, yeah. I think they want him out permanently though, and it seems that they're going with the Greek left back. Is it Shmikas?
Yeah.
Maybe that. Go on.
No, I was just saying, I'm thinking if obviously Robertson's out for any length of time, then they're going to need cover below Tsimikas now, aren't they? So whether that would alter how they're thinking in terms of left back. But I've not seen a definitive timeline on Robertson. It looked a bad one when I saw it on the TV last weekend. Rolled his ankle ligament. Is it? Yeah. That doesn't surprise me at all. I feared it would be longer than that, to be honest. But obviously no go for tomorrow. So and I think Tsimikas has only played something like ridiculous 6 minutes of Premier League football for Liverpool. So if we're looking for the odd straw to clutch at, if Norwich could get at him down the left hand side, then who knows?
Yeah, absolutely. It's going to be interesting. Just in terms of, as we're speaking about loanees, we kind of said 3 more probably maximum is what we're looking at for Norwich City. In terms of whether that's domestically or sort of foreign loans, how many of those 3 do you see being taken up by loan players? Because they've obviously got 2 foreign loans to play with that they haven't utilised yet. It's something they did utilise heavily 2 years ago. We saw Andre Duda, Ralph Fearman, Ibrahim Amadou. None of those particularly worked. But do you see that being a route they go down again? I think they've probably made a little secret that they'd rather have someone on a permanent basis this time around.
Well, yes, but if you're bringing in, as they have done at the moment, it's 7 permanents. Obviously, you knew Liss and Gibson were here before, but permanent deals, and there's only the 1 loan. I don't think that would tilt the ratio too far the other way in terms of wanting your own players and people who you around here for the mid to longer term. But if the options aren't available domestically, and that might be whether the players they want are available or the finances around those deals, or they can't give the guarantees to clubs about giving said players enough minutes at the Premier League level, then 100% I could quite conceivably see a scenario where they go overseas for another loan signing. But yeah, you're right, that the names you reeled off there, the track record is pretty lousy. It's one of the strands of the Weber-Farke recruitment that hasn't probably worked as well as certainly other strands have. But I'm sure there would be, if you're casting your net across Europe, there must be players who, for whatever reason, would be available on loan, who they feel in those areas could could improve what they're trying to assemble, which is a Premier League grade squad. And I'd say if push come to shove of the three positions, I think they'd probably want to do the central midfielder as a permanent deal, because that is, looking like an area that they do need to plug, with Vrancic going, Tete going, Skip going back to his parent club. I think in an ideal world, you'd want that to be another permanent addition. But certainly the centre-back situation we discussed, if, the Aya type player isn't available in their price bracket, then a loan makes sense. And certainly because the left-back essentially would be cover. If you feel Giannoulis is going to be your first choice in the Premier League, then you're probably looking at somebody to come in and initially not be in the starting 11. So, yeah, I think of those three positions, bar the centre mid, I think the other two could conceivably be loan additions, no doubt about it.
Yeah, I agree. It's a difficult position to recruit for, isn't it? That left back one, when you're essentially signing a player to be a backup. That's always a difficult sell, I think, if you're going out there. I promise we haven't plotted, or at least I haven't plotted this kind. I can't speak for you, Pad. From Chris, who says the greatest double team coming at us right now. # Pad and Connor. So we'll take that. Any similar compliments are welcome.
Where's the tongue in cheek emoji there, Connor? I think we've been set up there, mate.
Yeah, I think you're probably right. We've got a few more names thrown at us. I did see one, which I'm just trying to find. Well, I'll say it anyway, which was Paddy McNair. I'll try and find the person who asked it. Someone at Middlesbrough can play. There we go. Barry Young said Paddy McNair, someone who can play centre back and central midfield, was pretty good in the Championship last season for Borough. Pad, would you be happy with that if we, I don't know, at some point saw Paddy McNair holding up a Norwich City scarf?
Well, get Kieran Scott to oil the wheels of that one. Now he's gone the other direction. Make it a term of his deal, maybe add on a clause. I'd be very happy there, because I think he is he had a good grounding. He was United, wasn't he, prior to? So he's certainly been schooled in the right way. What would make me think that's a non-starter is the importance that Neil Warnock attaches to him. I remember the two games Norwich played last season, and I think around both of them he was almost eulogising about McNair and Howson were the two. So I would think, without having followed Borough too closely this summer, that if Neil Warnock's looking to get yet another promotion on his CV, his long and distinguished CV of promotions, then Paddy McNair would be pretty intrinsic to him. Unless there's I haven't checked, unless there's a contractual thing there, maybe either he's running into the latter stages of his contract, or there might be some sort of clauses in there. I don't know, but just in terms of the footballing aspect of that, I think he's that important to Borough and Neil Warnock. I couldn't see it, but yeah, if that type of player was to arrive, then I think that would be a very good addition, because, as you said, Connor, rightly, we're talking about they need three players, but if you've got a player who can play in two positions and play to a decent level in two positions, then it opens up far more possibilities in maybe moving into January and beyond. So and that wouldn't surprise you, actually, if even if it's not a McNair, but if it's a player who's maybe a multi-purpose. Sargent, by all accounts, he could play wider, has played wider, could also play down the middle. That chimes with what Webber said to us at the start of the summer. It's about quality, but bringing down the quantity in terms of the raw numbers. And one of the ways you can do that is obviously by having versatile players who can operate in multiple positions.
Yeah, and it would be all right for Neil Warnock, wouldn't it? Because he could use his newfound knowledge of the Argentinian footballing pyramid. He's just signed a midfielder from Argentina, which doesn't seem very Neil Warnock-like, but there you go. Michael J. Garwood asking the big questions on Facebook. He said the biggest and most important question that needs answering is, will the Evening News be doing the matchday newspaper chocolate bar crisps and bottle of water goodie bag tomorrow? I haven't been told otherwise, Pad, unless you have.
No, I haven't been told otherwise. Yeah, it's a bit soul destroying, that. I'll be honest, that when you see that at Carrow Road and literally the bag's been opened, everything's been taken out apart from the paper, which is fair enough. I'm sure the chocolate bar is quite nice, but it'd be nice if the people who I've seen anyway would maybe use the paper as well for reading. But hopefully that is the case. But we must confess we don't know 100%. We've not checked on that. But if not, let's get a campaign going to bring back the chocolate bars.
Yeah, absolutely. Throw some in our direction as well. That'd be most welcome. Joe Keeler, this sort of lends on to the point we were talking about multi sort of purpose players as well. How much money to Norwich have left to spend? Is it just loans now, or 10, 15 million roughly to play about with? I think if you sort of work out the spend roughly, it works out about 50 million, doesn't it? If you include Gibson and your Nulis.
Yeah, but then you subtract Buendia, O'Connor, you subtract the Buendia money, and I think it gets down to about 15, 16 million net spend. So, my take on it would be that, again, you're trying to equip a Premier League squad, and if you're looking to do another 3, and maybe one of those is a loan, or at most 2, one domestic, one foreign, then you're still going to have to pay decent whack for that third player. So I don't think that's unreasonable, actually, to think, then there might be that sort of still in the pot to play with.
Absolutely. Another name from Jake Tidy, who says, do you think we should test the waters for Japhet Tanganga loan signing? He obviously sort of made his name under Jose Mourinho, didn't he, at Spurs? Can play left back. I think he's primarily a centre back, about 21, I think, as well, off the top of my head. That would be the sort of profile, wouldn't it, that would represent probably for Norwich a step up to what they have at the moment. And to stress, that's what they're looking for, isn't it? If they are going to sign a player on loan, it would have to improve what they have currently. So essentially, you're looking at an option that is better than one of Grant Hanley or Ben Gibson. So that's quite a high bar to set in terms of a loan addition.
Well, it is. That's the key to it all, and hence why they were willing to go 10 million for Ayer, and that wasn't enough, which underlines, if they now want to go back into that market and bring in a player who they feel might be an upgrade, you spent 8 million to make Gibson permanent, so your starting point has to be 8, because if you're looking for a better player than Ben Gibson and Grant Hanley, then that's certainly going to be the market baseline, if you like. So, and I'm not sure, I keep seeing the lad Worrell linked. He's still at Forest, isn't he? I thought a week or so ago it was heavily touted with Burnley, but as far as I'm aware, he's still at Forest, isn't he? I think he might be injured because he's not played for Forest yet this season. And as we like to repeat on here, is there a deal you could put together there that maybe includes Jordan Hugill going the other way with the requisite weighting of the finances? I don't know. He's certainly a player they have admired in the past, and good young player. Question marks about whether he can step up. But again, as we've seen with Sargent, as we've seen with Rashica, as we've seen with Tzolis, a lot of that is potential, and he would be another one you'd file in the potential category. But, that to me would be the scale of deal they'd need to put in place if you're looking to bring in a permanent to compete with Gibson and Hanley, and probably to a lesser extent Zimmerman.
Joe Worrell's a really good shout, actually. That would be an interesting one. Player plus cash deals are always immensely difficult to do, though, aren't they? And they always seem to drag on. We're getting probably towards that stage of the window now where we'll start to see Arsenal putting £40 million bids in, plus about 4 players. That tends to be what you get at this stage of the window. Bradley on YouTube. We'll do a couple more transfer ones, and then we'll look ahead to the game tomorrow. He simply says, Cantwell staying, ? New contract ? On the latter point, certainly nothing imminent. It seems like everyone is relatively relaxed about Todd's contractual situation at the moment. On the first point, Pad, do you see Todd Cantwell now staying beyond the deadline?
Yeah, I do, actually. I think, there was all that flurry around Villa, but, that seems to have gone very quiet in the intervening period of Grealish leaving. So, all I'll say that, was it 90 minutes? Did something this afternoon at Arsenal, apparently. No, tell a lie, Klopp. Liverpool are, whatever the phrase they used, admirers of the player or whatever. So, substitute Villa and insert another club, really. But I don't think it's the end of the speculation between now and the window, but I think the way this seems to be heading is, he will still be here beyond this window, and I think they're going to need him because, he is, albeit not proven at Premier League, but he has played in the Premier League and showed he had, and bearing in mind that was a player 2 years ago, and he's kicked on again, no doubt about it, that he could leave a positive impact on the Premier League. So, because we have those question marks against those other new boys who are coming in the building, I think Todd Cantwell is post Buendia is really his influence, or his potential influence, grows quite immeasurably, I think. So, certainly Daniel again today was chiming the message that he expects to keep hold of all his players. So, that tells me there's been no firm interest. And if that was to stay the case between now and the end of the window, he'd be happy. And I think most Norwich fans, because obviously Max Aarons would be the other one. If those two stay in the building, Norwich's chances increase pretty substantially, I think, in terms of can they pull off 17th or better.
Yeah, he's looked brilliant in pre-season as well, hasn't he? I think as well. I spoke to Chris Sutton a couple of weeks ago. He said maybe there's this element of stepping out of the shadows, Emi Buendia's shadow, and being that main man, and the confidence that could give to Todd, I think is tremendous. And what a footballer he's becoming in front of sort of everyone's eyes at the moment. A couple more shouts for centre back loan signings. These two are pretty good actually. Liam says I'd like Joe Roden, who's another centre back at Spurs. Jake Tidy says Nathan Ake, which is an interesting one because we were coming back from Newcastle last weekend, weren't we? We had the Community Charity Shield commentary on the radio, and they were speaking. Well, certainly I can't remember who it was doing the punditry and analysis now, but they were saying, well, maybe Nathan Ake does need a loan, and I think he made quite a major rick, didn't he, in that game? I want to say he conceded the penalty, but I might be wrong. That would be an interesting one again if Farke wants to call up Pep Guardiola and maybe see if he's got any decent centre backs lying about. Let's see what else we have got, and then we'll go to Jurgen Klopp and then look ahead to the game. Canary gaming Reece Nelson. I think we've spoken about Reece Nelson before, haven't we, Pad? In terms of that one maybe being probably slightly he's a bit more of an attacking player anyway, isn't he, Reece Nelson? So I can't see at this stage Norwich doing that. It's a good one from Tyler Smith. Harry Souttar from Stoke, centre back, relatively young. Yeah,
it was the lad who went off to Burnley. Keep talking about Burnley, but
Nathan Collins.
Yeah. So would that? I don't know what they've done in terms of centre back additions this summer, but you would think that would be a difficult one if they've already sold one centre back, and clearly Mark O'Neill's trying to, hence with the Bosnian Messi, he's trying to equip that team to have a good crack at promotion. So. He is a good player, that young lad. Yeah, I remember he was decent in the 2 games against Norwich. So, he's a big lad as well. Liam Winnell says 6'6". That is a big lad. So, I could see him being one that Norwich will be aware of 100%. But whether Stoke would be willing to trade, I'm not quite sure. I don't think having let Collins go to Burnley. Sorry.
The Bosnian Messi. It's the first time I've heard Mario Vrancic described as that. More of a Pirlo, isn't he? Central midfield?
Yeah, well, I've obviously been consuming the PSG sort of circus this week, haven't I? Yeah, so that's where I pulled that one from, I think. Yeah,
there we go. Let's finish in terms of transfers with Jez Arlo's question. Says, evening, gents. What's your thoughts on a Hamza Chowdhury or I'm going to have to say his name now.
You wrote the story, mate.
Okay, we'll call him the Turkish midfielder. Okay, who's on loan at West Brom last season, loan. So Norwich definitely aren't interested in OK Yokosulu. I think that's how you say his name. I've probably completely butchered that. I think we had Hamza Chowdhury right at the start of the window as well. I remember that one popping up. There's nothing in that one either, but it would be that caliber of player, you would imagine, wouldn't you? I would imagine OK's wages are probably a little bit steep for Norwich. He's at Celta Vigo, seemingly closing in on a move to Wolves, which would probably be a good addition for them. I suspect it was very good for West Brom. Hamza Chowdhury's been linked with Newcastle a lot, hasn't he? Although that seems to have died down surrounding him. So yeah, potentially there could be something there. Let's finish in terms of transfers then. Here's a little clip of Jurgen Klopp from his press conference today, speaking about Norwich City's transfer activity.
I love to win the first game, but I think it would be disrespectful to talk about these kind of things before we face Norwich even. So we have to go there. We will do that this afternoon to have a nice sleep overnight, play there tomorrow afternoon, and I know how good they are, and I know how great the job is Daniel Farke is doing there. They obviously gave him, for a situation, for a club like Norwich, is incredible trust in him, a new 4-year contract, which is absolutely great. So they believe there in his work and the project. And you can see that they lost good players, or one at least, what I know about, but they did sensational business. Billy Gilmore is obviously one of the biggest Scottish talent for the last 50 years. Bring him in on loan. Then Rashica, I know from the Bundesliga. Sargent, I know from the Bundesliga. So 2 really good, exciting strikers, offensive players. So lost Buendia, yes, but the replacements they found, now the little Greek boy who came in last week. So good business. So exciting what they are doing, and we have to be absolutely spot on to have a good start. And if we had a good start, then we can talk about that.
There you go. All that fuss over.
I was just going to say,
we'll just call him the little Greek boy, shall we?
If it's good enough for Jurgen, that'll do me, mate. Yeah, never mind all this pronunciation malarkey. The little Greek boy.
There we go. He'll be known from now on. Billy Gilmore, best Scottish talent in 50 years. Let's not tell Andy Robertson.
Don't fall into the. Well, I see. There's been a lot of media saying that, but that is, you play that quote again, Connor. He actually says one of the best. He doesn't say he's the best. Because otherwise, Andy Robertson will be on his door. And as somebody pointed out to me, who's the biggest legend at Liverpool? Sir Kenneth Dalglish. I think he might have something to say with if Jurgen's now making out he's the best.
Yeah, that's a good point.
No, I think in his defence, he said he was one of the best. But but irrespective, he was eulogising old Jurgen. It's good to see these top profile managers talking about Norwich. It just proves they're back in the big time, mate.
It does, yeah. Without the glasses as well. He broke them at Norwich a few years ago, didn't he? So that's good to see. Let's look ahead to this one then, Pad. How do you see, particularly given the context that we have now about Omobamidele being a slight doubt because of tonsillitis earlier this week? Although I would probably be inclined to suggest that maybe won't ruin his chances of getting in the squad. I think it's just probably a question now of whether Daniel Farke elects to start him. Yeah. How do you see? There's been a lot of talk about Norwich's system. How do you see Daniel playing it? Do you see him going to a back 3/5? Do you see him going with a 4-3-3? How do you kind of see him approaching this one? Because I think there's probably arguments for both, really.
Yeah, no, I genuinely, in last season or seasons past, we wouldn't even need to debate it. It'd be 4-2-3-1, bang, away you go. Players pretty much picking themselves, certainly when they're doing well and they're in the good times. I think for the disrupted pre-season that we've had, and now allied to, I think he said a slight doubt or a slight question mark was the actual sort of Daniel phrase on Omobamidele. But then in the training footage, I think they put out from yesterday, he was there and he was involved. So I think that was the early part of the week. Daniel was saying that maybe he missed a bit of training. Prior to, I'd have thought he, we talked about it. I thought he might, given we've seen it a lot in pre-season, might have gone with a 3 and maybe drop out Zimmerman and put Hanley in there. I definitely think Hanley will play tomorrow. I don't think there's any doubt about that. Daniel said today the plan was he would have played the last 4 friendlies. Well, 2 of those were cancelled because COVID, and then he missed 2 because of COVID. So that's tells me that the issue that he ended up missing the last part of the Euros or that last second half of that game for Scotland, that is behind him now. And really it was just this kind of, as I say, running theme through Norwich's pre-season plans that was why we didn't see him on the pitch. So in terms of his fitness, I think there wouldn't be an issue. So I think he will come back in. And as I say, prior to hearing that today, I thought that might be in a 3. I'm inclined to think he might now just err on the side of caution and go 4 and basically restore last season's, for the majority anyway, title-winning running back 4, which is Max Aarons, Janulis, Hanley, Gibson, Tim Krul, and then if he goes with a 4, I can just see him. I can see him reverting to type a little bit, and maybe and you could debate the defensive lack of Elise Malou, Gilmore pairing in front of the back 4, but I think that might be. I certainly think those 2 will play, and it's just how you accommodate them in whatever midfield formula. Kenny McLean might come a bit too soon. Daniel was saying he was still getting a bit of trouble with his knee and his back, as soon as late as last week. And Lucas Rupp, I'm not sure he really has warranted, a serious conversation to put him into the 11 for when the real business starts. So I think it'll be those 6 plus keeper. And then, like we discussed earlier, I think the GOAT will play. And then it's, for me, Dowell, Cantwell, maybe Rashica behind. So, but having mapped all that out, if it was to be 3 at the back tomorrow and Kenny McLean was in front of them, then I could just as well see that. I mean, Daniel basically said himself tonight he's got some late calls to make and some issues to work through in terms of his own mind and counterbalancing. I think he put it. How many of the players who really haven't had a pre-season worthy of the name, how many of them do you put into the 11, and how many could you maybe get away with? And I guess he's going to put his head on the pillow tonight, and he probably won't still at that point know his final 11, and it'll probably be tomorrow now. So, if he's in a bit of a quandary, then it's very hard to second guess. But I just think, the the GOAT has to play, Hanley has to play, and Cantwell has to play. So if that is the case, then it's probably meaning Omobama Daly would miss out, Edam would miss out from the ones who've been involved in pre-season, and maybe Rupp and McLean for me as well. But as Daniel said, after Gillingham, a bumpy start in progress, and that is where we're at. The fact that hours out now from the opening game, and he still probably doesn't know the 11 he's going to put on the park. It's far from ideal prep, but that's the way of the world, isn't it? So I think he'll probably go along more tried and trusted rather than trying to roll the dice from this first game, because the degree of difficulty is already tough enough because of the disrupted pre-season. But I'll throw that back to you, Connor. You think he might still go on Obama Daly then in a free?
I do. Yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I think I just got a feeling that he's going to stick with that free, and then sort of hopefully, because of the way Liverpool like to play their wingers, which aren't really wingers, they effectively play as two strikers, and Firmino kind of drops, doesn't he? So I think then you kind of match them up a little bit and get a bit of a numerical advantage over them in the centre of the pitch, which I think he might try and do. I could quite feasibly see a sort of 5-4-1, a 5-3-2, possibly even as well with Sargent and Pukki up top. I think that's feasible. But the fact we're kind of listing these options now shows the position that Norwich are in compared to 2 years ago, when it was literally the 4-2-3-1, and then it was probably a debate about who would play in central midfield and how they would kind of get that to be stable enough defensively. So the fact we're kind of talking about these different options that they now have is probably a testament to their recruitment, really, isn't it? So it's going to be really interesting to see what he does go for and how they do look to approach it. And as you mentioned there, that balance that he has to strike between probably playing some of these players that have obviously been in COVID isolation and maybe 2 weeks down the track from where they need to be fitness-wise, and those players that maybe wouldn't necessarily be frontline options if everyone else was available, but just to make sure they kind of keep them topped up and where they need to be. Someone like Lucas Rupp, for example, I could see playing as a midfield in a midfield three with Gilmour and Leigh-Malou. So it's a testament, and we've kind of spoken about this sort of phrase, quality, not quantity. Yeah. Maybe a testament to the quality that Norwich have in the building that now Daniel Farke does have. And I'll go back to that famous quote from Stuart Webber, sort of sending him into war without a gun. Well, now he's got numerous options to kind of tinker with, to maybe, and he said it today, didn't he, about not changing the principles as much, but maybe changing the way they approach each opponent. Maybe now he's got more options to do that.
Yeah. I did ask him that. It was kind of leading on from the point you've been sort of making about, does the recruitment hint at maybe a more counter-attacking strategy as a rule in the Premier League. And I thought he was basically more chiming the pragmatic line. As he said, what you're suggesting in the Premier League is that you have to sort of cut your cloth for different opponents. But then he went on to say, well, in the Championship, you play Brentford one week and then you play Middlesbrough the following week, and you do likewise. But obviously in the Championship, you've probably got pound for pound better players, so you can almost impose how you want to set about it. And more often than not in the Championship, you're still going to come off the pitch with a positive result. I don't think you can, not be blasé, but I don't think you can be that dismissive in the Premier League. He knows full well that with a fair wind, Liverpool, Manchester City, and probably even, maybe less so Leicester, but maybe Arsenal in that first month, Norwich aren't going to be dominating possession. So if they're not, they need to find different ways to get a positive result. And that clearly is one of the strands to the recruitment, that in players like Sargent, Rashica, Tzolis, they have slightly different options, and let's be honest, probably slightly better options than they had in the building prior to the summer, and that will allow them to be a bit more flexible. Once, as we keep stressing, all the players are firmly up to speed, which probably isn't going to be until the other side of this first international break. And that's just the way it is. But that, as much as we've last 5-10 minutes discussed personnel and formations, it might even be the approach tomorrow. Even that might be a slightly different, certainly compared to last season in the Championship, which was very formulaic. Norwich would dominate. I don't know what their average possession stats were. Must have been around 55-60% over the course of the season. And whether, against the Liverpool side, who are kind of known a little bit for that, fearsome front three and inviting teams on and hitting them, it might be that actually possession-wise, Norwich do see plenty of the ball tomorrow, in which case Gilmour is a very important cog in the machine. If he can set the tempo and keep Norwich moving forward and in possession, then if Norwich have the ball, then Liverpool don't. It's as simple as that, isn't it? And then they can't feed a Mane, Jota, Firmino.
You can stop there.
Yeah, I'll stop there. Yeah, Salah, I'll throw him at the end. But yeah, no. So many fascinating aspects to this game tomorrow, and can't wait, mate. Can't wait.
Yeah, me too. It's I think you're right. I think if they are going to look to try and counter attack, then they do need a Rashica in there or a little Greek boy, for example, someone along those lines, maybe that is capable of maybe injecting a little bit of pace, because that's the one thing you would look at if Cantwell plays, if Dow plays, if Pukki play. I mean, Pukki's not slow, but he's not rapid, is he? I think you probably need someone who can carry the ball a little bit if that's what you're going to look to do. So you maybe, I don't know how quick Josh Sargent is, to be truthful. So it would probably be difficult in terms of judging him and how he'd fit into that side. But I think I could probably see Rashica starting, to be honest. I think he may be the one that they take the chance on, especially given that Daniels had a little bit of time to work with him in pre-season before, obviously, he then was forced into isolation. I'll force a prediction upon you then, Pad. How do you see this one going ultimately? And I've kind of said this throughout the various videos that we've done today. Terrace Talk as well, if you want to go and watch that after this, is good with a Liverpool fan and a Norwich fan previewing sort of this game. But I kind of said, look, unless there's a major incident with VAR that maybe people get angry about, and we hope that's not the case with the thicker lines or whatever else they've changed this year, or Norwich City get absolutely stuffed, I think most people will just be walking out with a smile on their face, having been involved in a full capacity crowd watching a game of football that involves Norwich City. And I don't think we can dismiss the impact of that sort of environment either. That could really, we talk about the players who aren't fit, that could give them the extra percentage actually that they need to sort of spur them on and get a positive performance. So How do you see this one going, Pad? How do you see the day going overall? It's going to be, as you say, really exciting, really fascinating, maybe a tad bit scary as well when you kind of list the Liverpool options, but we won't think about those too much. So this time tomorrow, how do you see this game panning out?
I mean, they said, well, people have painted that famous Manchester City win as almost once in an era. So it's probably too greedy to expect we can get that result, that performance, that atmosphere again. But it might take something of that nature, really. Although, let's be honest, Liverpool coming off the back of a season where they were pretty compliant in just stepping aside and letting Man City take their crown. They're not that Man City that pitched up under Guardiola 3 seasons ago now. So I wouldn't put them quite on that pedestal in terms of dominance, but they're a very, very good side. I mean, Van Dijk coming back is not something you want to see, really, because he was as good a centre-back as there is in the game prior to his injury. And, that front three we've touched on, Jota seems to have embellished them as well. Every way you look, they've got quality. And I know it was a pre-season game last weekend and the result didn't really matter. And there was reasons why Norwich sort of fell away in that second half. But you could just see the step up in intensity and quality and the decision making. Like you had Omabama Daly there, and in the Championship he had more time on the ball. And that game last weekend, albeit a friendly against Premier League opposition, he was having to be hurried into making decisions and passing the ball back to Tim Krul and so on. And it's that intensity that might catch one or two of these players out tomorrow, I think, which is understandable because it's a big leap from the Championship to facing one of the biggest clubs in world football. So I think you have to err on the side of Liverpool edging the game, but you're right. I mean, if Norwich put in a performance worthy of the occasion and the fans get behind them, and then you can move on from that and think, okay, well, when we get all our players back, when we get them all fully up to speed, then there's something to build on. But ultimately, it's hard to, at this stage, unless your heart is ruling your head, to put forward a case that Liverpool will return from Carrow Road with no points tomorrow. But, stranger things have happened. But I just think if I was to see, Norwich start to equip themselves and start to show that it could be a little bit different this time around to how it finished certainly 2 seasons ago. I mean, let's be honest, they started that previous Premier League season excellently. Not on the first night, obviously, given that they got whacked at Anfield. But that first 6 weeks, full of confidence, full of momentum. Cantwell doing his bits and Pukki, doing what he was doing. And and there was a sense that they could hope for more, but sadly the Premier League is a brutal environment for newly promoted clubs, and they got found out. But I think ultimately we're probably going to be looking at a Liverpool win. But if it was a 2-1 defeat, a 3-1 defeat, and Norwich have shown enough, then me personally, I think that'd be something to build on. What you don't, quite right, Connor, you don't want them to turn up tomorrow and get whacked 4 or 5, because then, okay, the mitigation will still be there, but it will just deflate everything, and then it, a hellishly difficult month then starts to become like peering through your fingers kind of thing, and just hoping against hope that because obviously what comes after Liverpool, it's Man City away, and that is the ultimate test, particularly if they have Grealish and, dare I say, a Harry Kane in their ranks. Probably not by the time Norwich go there, but to get whacked tomorrow, and then you've got Man City next. Well, good luck with that, Daniel, trying to raise them players. So yeah, I just hope that they give a good account of themselves and push Liverpool, and it isn't a stroll in the park. And if we get that, then given all the disruption they've had in pre-season, given they're just literally bringing new players into the building, I think that would be enough, hopefully, for those 24,000 fans to rally behind and then move on, and then the next home game, and then hopefully hope for more again.
Absolutely. Performances, not points at this stage. I think that's fair to say. It's the same with every season. I think you want to see the foundations laid. I actually think this will be a lot tighter than maybe a lot of neutrals think, at least. I've seen predictions of sort of 3-0. I think Mark Lawrenson said 3-0 to Liverpool, as he would. Of course, I don't think he's predicted Liverpool to lose in about 13 years or something, has he? So it's not a major surprise. Various others as well. I think it will be tighter than that, as you say. I think we could see. I think back to the game at Carrow Road, it was one of the final ones we saw, wasn't it? Before games went behind closed doors. Liverpool only beat Norwich 1-0 that night. Lucas Rupp had a wonderful chance, I think, before Alisson smothered his effort. And then Sadio Mane
should have passed the Pookie, shouldn't he?
He should have. Yeah. And Sadio Mane only scored late on. So I think probably, like you say, a 2-1 defeat, and maybe shake yourself down. It's next week, I fear, to be honest, at the Etihad. Yeah, let's not worry about that just yet. A couple of optimistic comments. Tyler Smith says, I would love to see Cantwell as the 10 and Rashica and the Greek boy on the wings, and then William Catchpole will end on this point, which is the nice positive one. He says, calling it now, 2-1 Norwich, Rashica and Lise Malou. Well, I think we'd all take that, wouldn't we, William? Paddy, thank you very much for joining me. Thank you all very much for watching. We'll be back next week with another window watch / preview show, hybrid, as we kind of look towards the final weeks of the window and the start of Norwich City's Premier League campaign. It'd be great to see you all at Carrow Road. It'd be great to be in attendance. I think that's going to be a fairly historic day, isn't it, in NR1 as the turnstiles open again and seats are occupied. It's going to be fascinating. Thank you all very much for watching, and we'll see you again soon.